A promising young Olympic swimmer vanished without a trace during a routine training swim in the vast ocean. The only logical conclusion offered was that she had tragically drowned. Yet, 4 long years later, her devoted father, Michael Anderson, who had never abandoned his relentless search, discovered something unexpected secured to the base of a remote buoy, a finding that would unravel a far more sinister reality. The cold embrace of the ocean enveloped Michael Anderson as he descended into its silent, emerald depths. Faint shafts of early morning light pierced the blue-green water, illuminating the rocky seabed stretching below him. His dive light methodically swept across patches of tangled seaweed and shifting sand as he moved with the practiced precision born of years spent exploring these waters. The only sound accompanying his search was the rhythmic rush of bubbles escaping from his oxygen tank, rising towards the distant surface. His weathered hand carefully sifted through layers of silt and broken shells, searching, forever searching. The familiar, heavy ache of disappointment settled deep within his chest as he once again found nothing, just as he had on hundreds of dives before this one. Above him, barely visible, his small, sturdy boat, the Sea Guardian, drifted lazily with the gentle ocean current. He had anchored near the outer edge of Pelican's Reach, several challenging miles from the familiar shoreline of Crescent Bay, the small coastal town he had always called home. Home, but not truly home anymore. Not since Olivia disappeared. For years. For agonizing years since his beloved 19-year-old daughter vanished without a clue in these very waters. For relentless years of diving nearly every single day, meticulously searching every square inch of seabed within his reach, clinging desperately to the hope of finding any sign, any remnant of her. Olivia Anderson had been a rising star in the demanding world of open water swimming, having recently qualified for the prestigious Olympic team. Though not yet a widely recognized household name, she had achieved respectable mid-tier finishes in her initial events, still managing to fly somewhat under the radar of major media attention. But her potential was undeniable. She was destined for greatness. Everyone who witnessed her powerful, graceful swim knew it instantly. Her dedication was unparalleled, her spirit fierce. She had trained diligently in these challenging waters for years, faithfully following the same demanding route each morning. From the Crescent Bay pier out to Pelican's Reach, circling the prominent blue water buoy, and back again, a grueling 4-mile round trip. For many of those years, Michael had proudly accompanied her on these training swims, navigating alongside her in his boat, watching over his daughter with the fierce protectiveness only a father could truly comprehend. But in the 6 months leading up to her disappearance, Olivia had started insisting, with growing firmness, on swimming alone. "Dad, I need to do this by myself now," she had told him, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Just wait for me back at the dock. I promise I'll be fine." And so, reluctantly, he had agreed, respecting her burgeoning independence while silently wrestling with worry every single minute until she returned safely to shore. Except for that one fateful day, for years ago, when she never came back. Michael vividly remembered the frantic, agonizing hours that followed. The desperate calls to the beach rescue authority, the hastily organized search parties scanning the coastline, him piloting the Sea Guardian back and forth, his eyes straining, praying fervently to spot her distinctive bright swim cap bobbing amongst the endless waves. But they found nothing. Not Olivia, not her swim gear, not a single solitary trace to suggest what might have happened. As the owner of a local diving company, Michael knew these waters intimately, better than almost anyone else. He understood the unpredictable currents, the hidden, treacherous reefs, the dangerous spots where even the most experienced swimmers could find themselves in sudden trouble. Yet all his extensive expertise had yielded absolutely nothing in the desperate search for his own daughter. After weeks of exhaustive searching, both he and the local police had been forced to confront the most probable, heartbreaking scenario. Olivia was likely no longer alive. The unforgiving ocean claimed swimmers, sometimes even elite ones like her. But Michael wouldn't stop looking. He felt an overwhelming need to find his daughter, to bring her home, to give her the proper burial she deserved. She deserved at least that much. His only child, his pride and joy, the incredibly talented young woman with her entire bright future stretching ahead of her. Today, however, something inexplicable had drawn Michael farther out from Pelican's reach than he usually ventured. A restless, persistent instinct he couldn't quite ignore. A faint whisper in the back of his mind suggesting that maybe, just maybe, he had overlooked something crucial out here in the vast expanse. After hours spent meticulously combing the seabed, Michael noticed his oxygen tank was running low. Reluctantly, he began his slow ascent toward the surface, his joints protesting after the prolonged dive. As his head broke through the water surface, the sunlight momentarily blinding him, he realized with a jolt of concern that he had drifted much farther than intended. His boat, the Sea Guardian, was now barely a speck in the distance. Cursing his oversight, Michael began the long, arduous swim back toward his vessel, the weight of his dive gear making every stroke a struggle. After several hundred yards, his muscles burning with fatigue, he paused, treading water to catch his breath. That's when he spotted it, a buoy bobbing nearby. Not the familiar blue water buoy Olivia had always used as her turning point, but a different, older one, situated farther out and rarely checked by boaters or authorities. Grateful for the unexpected opportunity to rest, Michael swam towards the buoy and grabbed onto its rusted, barnacle-encrusted metal frame. As he caught his breath, his gaze happened to drift upward along the structure towering above the waterline. Something unusual was strapped securely to the center of the buoy, some kind of device. His curiosity instantly piqued. Michael pulled himself up onto the buoy's small platform, his wet hands slipping slightly on the corroded metal surface. Reaching the mysterious device, he carefully unstrapped it and examined the object now resting in his hands. It was a GoPro camera, encased in a sturdy waterproof housing. The case itself was clearly worn by relentless exposure to the sea and weather, yet something about its specific shape and design felt strangely, disturbingly familiar. Someone must have accidentally left this here, he murmured aloud to himself, turning the device over and over in his hands. The housing was bulkier than the standard GoPro case, clearly a high-end model specifically designed to withstand deeper ocean depths. Michael recognized it immediately. It was the exact same specialized model he had painstakingly researched and purchased for Olivia, insisting on the absolute best protection money could buy for her equipment. What an unbelievable coincidence, he thought, shaking his head slightly. But as he turned the case over one last time, his heart nearly stopped beating in his chest. There, stuck firmly on the back, was a small, faded blue dolphin sticker with the distinct letters etched beneath it, Olivia Anderson. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably. This wasn't just any camera accidentally left behind. This was Olivia's camera, the very one he had given her, the one she had faithfully carried with her on every single training swim. Michael stared, unable to believe his eyes. With fumbling fingers, driven by a surge of adrenaline, he quickly worked the stiff latches to open the waterproof case. The GoPro camera nestled inside appeared intact, although its battery was completely dead, as expected after so long. He gently traced his fingers over the smooth surface of the device, vividly remembering the day he had presented it to her. "Take this with you," he had insisted back when she first started swimming alone. "Record your sessions. I want to be able to see your progress." She had playfully rolled her eyes at his overprotectiveness, but accepted the gift with a warm smile. "Okay, Dad, if it makes you feel better." Michael carefully placed the precious camera into his waterproof gear bag and began swimming back toward his distant boat with a newfound, desperate energy fueling his tired limbs. His diving companion, Mark, an old friend who often joined him on these somber search expeditions, was waiting anxiously on deck, his expression etched with concern. "You went much farther than usual today, Michael," Mark observed as Michael climbed aboard. "The sun's getting high. We should probably start heading back." "You're absolutely right," Michael replied, his voice slightly breathless as he pulled the camera from his bag, his hands still trembling noticeably. But look what I found. Mark's eyes widened in stunned recognition as he saw the camera. Is that? Michael could only nod, unable to speak past the sudden, overwhelming lump that had formed in his throat. They quickly prepared the Sea Guardian for the return journey to Crescent Bay. As they approached the familiar harbor, Michael thanked his friend profusely for his help and apologized for needing to rush off so suddenly. Mark simply clasped his shoulder in silent, complete understanding. After quickly changing out of his damp diving suit into dry clothes, Michael climbed into his car, the GoPro clutched tightly, almost painfully in his hand. 4 long years of relentless searching, and finally, he had something tangible, a clue, a fragile connection back to Olivia. Whatever footage might be preserved on this camera could potentially reveal what truly happened to his daughter. And Michael Anderson was fiercely determined to uncover that truth, no matter the cost. Michael's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as he pulled out his phone and dialed Detective Miller, the lead officer who had been assigned to Olivia's perplexing missing person case 4 long years ago. Miller speaking, came the gruff but familiar voice on the other end. "It's Michael Anderson," he said, his own voice tense with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "I found something. I found Olivia's GoPro camera. It was strapped to a remote buoy miles out from her usual swimming route." A moment of stunned silence hung on the line. "You found her camera? After all this time?" Miller finally asked, his tone reflecting disbelief. "Yes," Michael confirmed, "and it might contain footage from the very day she disappeared. I need to bring it in immediately." "Damn it. I'm actually walking into a mandatory department meeting that starts in precisely 10 minutes, Detective Miller replied, sounding genuinely frustrated by the inconvenient timing. "I can't meet with you right away." Michael's heart sank momentarily, but the detective quickly continued. "However, you could drop it off at the station right now. I'll alert our forensic tech team to expect you. They can begin the process of accessing the content, and we'll ensure it's kept safe and logged properly as potential evidence." "Thank you, Detective." "Thank you so much," Michael said, a wave of relief washing over him. "I'll head straight there now." "I should be free in a few hours," Miller added. "We can definitely talk then." Michael suddenly remembered his prior commitment for the afternoon. "Oh shoot. I'm really sorry, Detective. Actually, I completely forgot I was supposed to attend a charity event this afternoon. A reunion luncheon with some former professional divers and athletes. I promised an old friend I'd give a brief speech. I can easily cancel, though," he added quickly. "I can just say there's an urgent matter at the police station." "You know what? That might not even be necessary," Miller assured him calmly. "Just drop off the camera for now. Depending on what our forensic tech, Eric Hayes, initially assesses, we'll figure out the next steps later. We can always meet up afterward." As Michael ended the call, he glanced anxiously at the clock on his car's dashboard. He still had a couple of hours before the charity event was scheduled to begin. 20 minutes later, Michael arrived at the Crescent Bay police station, Olivia's GoPro held securely in his hand. The officer stationed at the front desk recognized him immediately from the past searches. "Mr. Anderson," she said with a sympathetic nod. "Detective Miller called ahead about you. Let me take you back to our tech lab right away." Michael was led down a short hallway to a small, brightly lit room filled with computers and various pieces of specialized electronic equipment. A man who looked to be in his mid-30s glanced up from a complex workstation. "You must be Michael Anderson," he said, extending a hand cordially. "I'm Eric Hayes, the forensic tech analyst here. Detective Miller briefed me on your incredible find." A uniformed police officer stood quietly nearby, clearly present to witness and document the handling of the potential evidence. "I found this camera strapped securely to a buoy several miles offshore," Michael explained, carefully placing the weather device onto the clean surface of the desk. "It belonged to my daughter, Olivia. She disappeared 4 years ago while she was training for the Olympics." The tech nodded solemnly, his expression conveying understanding. "All right, let's see what we got here," Eric said, beginning his work methodically. He first photographed the camera meticulously from multiple angles, documenting its condition exactly as found, then carefully removed the depleted battery and the crucial memory card. The battery is visibly swollen, which isn't unexpected after prolonged saltwater exposure, he observed. But the memory card itself looks surprisingly intact, he continued, inspecting it closely under a powerful magnifier. No signs of major corrosion damage. That's definitely a very good sign. He carefully inserted the memory card into a specialized card reader connected directly to his computer system. Standard procedure is to make a complete forensic copy first, to preserve the integrity of the original data before we attempt any analysis, he explained. Michael stood tensely behind him, watching the progress bar as the files slowly transferred from the tiny card to the computer's hard drive. After what felt like an agonizingly long few minutes, Eric opened the first video file recovered from the card. The screen suddenly filled with Olivia's smiling face, and Michael's knees nearly buckled beneath him from the sheer emotional impact. There she was, alive and vibrant, her wet hair plastered to her head as she expertly adjusted the camera's position on the buoy. Testing, testing. Her voice came clearly through the computer speakers, slightly distorted by the ocean wind, but unmistakably, beautifully hers. "This looks like the perfect spot to capture my training session today," she commented cheerfully. The footage showed her carefully securing the GoPro to the buoy's frame, meticulously positioning it to record her swimming approach and turns. She looked happy, focused, bursting with energy, exactly the way Michael remembered her before she vanished. The next video clip showed Olivia treading water effortlessly beside the buoy, talking directly into the camera lens as if making a video diary entry. "Day 42 of intense Olympic training," she announced, slightly breathless from exertion. "Coach says my overall endurance is definitely improving, but my turns around the markers still need a lot of work." She sighed then, her expression suddenly turning serious, contemplative. "Sometimes I honestly wonder if I'm really cut out for all this," she confessed quietly. "The pressure is just so intense, and truthfully, I'm nowhere near the performance level of the top international competitors yet. If I even manage to make it to the actual games, will I just end up embarrassing myself on a global stage?" Michael's throat tightened painfully. He'd never known she harbored such deep-seated doubts beneath her confident exterior. The footage continued, with Olivia still speaking candidly to the camera, when suddenly her attention shifted abruptly. She glanced off to the side, her expression registering surprise. "Oh, hello there," she called out cheerfully to someone just off camera. A moment later, a young man swam into the frame, though his face was partially obscured by water droplets clinging stubbornly to the camera lens. The camera angle, mounted high on the buoy above them, showed only the top portion of his head. His eyes and wet, dark hair were visible, but not his full face, preventing clear identification. "Hey there," the young man responded, his voice sounding friendly and casual. "Didn't expect to see anyone else swimming way out this far." "Just training," Olivia replied easily. "I'm Olivia. Name's Danny," the young man said. "You're really pushing it, swimming way out here all by yourself." "I'm training for the Olympics," Olivia explained matter-of-factly. "Open water swimming." "No way. That's absolutely amazing." Danny sounded genuinely impressed. "Are you going to be famous soon?" Olivia laughed lightly. "Hardly. I'm still pretty new to the elite competition level. Haven't exactly made a big media splash just yet. Still flying mostly under the radar, you could say." "Well, you definitely look like a pro swimmer to me," Danny countered smoothly. "Hey, want a race? Just for fun. I used to compete a bit myself back in college." "Sure, why not?" Olivia agreed readily, a competitive smile spreading across her face. "Where to?" Danny pointed towards a distant rocky landmark along the coastline. "How about out to that distinctive outcropping and back?" "You're definitely on," Olivia confirmed, adjusting her swimming goggles purposefully. The two swimmers then moved out of the camera's frame, and for the next half an hour or so, the GoPro simply recorded the gentle, rhythmic movement of the ocean waves against the buoy. Then, far off in the distance, a sleek speedboat suddenly appeared, crossing through the camera's field of view, significantly farther away from the buoy itself. The fisheye lens of the GoPro naturally distorted the perspective, making the boat appear even more distant than it actually was. The camera angle only managed to capture the lower half of the boat's hull, including what clearly appeared to be some sort of company logo emblazoned on its side. Michael leaned forward intently, squinting hard at the image on the screen. "Can you enhance that logo somehow?" he asked Eric urgently. Eric nodded, pausing the video playback and skillfully zooming in on the boat's hull. Despite the digital enhancement, the image remained somewhat blurry due to the distance and water conditions, but the logo was just clear enough to make out a stylized wave design with some accompanying text printed beneath it. "That looks vaguely familiar," Michael murmured, quickly taking out his phone to snap a picture of the enhanced image on the monitor. They continued watching the remaining footage, but Olivia never returned to the buoy. The recording simply showed hours of empty, open ocean until the camera's battery finally died completely. "Can you please go back to the segment with the young man, Danny?" Michael asked, his voice tight with renewed suspicion. Eric skillfully rewound the footage, and they watched the entire interaction between Olivia and Danny again, meticulously trying to glean any additional identifying details about the mysterious swimmer. The forensic tech carefully made notes about Danny's approximate age, his hair color, and the limited facial features that were momentarily visible in the footage. Using a sophisticated reverse image search program on the boat logo captured earlier, Eric soon found a match. "It's registered to a company called Ocean Elite Marine," he announced, turning to Michael. "They're a local business based right here in Crescent Bay that apparently provides high-end boats and various equipment rentals for water sports activities." Michael suddenly recalled seeing boats bearing that exact same distinctive logo docked at the main marina earlier that very day. "Okay, we'll definitely show all of this to Detective Miller right away and immediately start investigating both the Ocean Elite Marine Company and this Danny character," Eric assured him firmly. "We'll also work on trying to create a composite sketch of the man based on what little we can clearly see in the footage." Michael nodded numbly, feeling a confusing mix of burgeoning hope and profound dread mingling uneasily in his chest. "Thank you, Eric. Please keep me updated on anything you find." He glanced quickly at his watch and realized he desperately needed to leave if he was going to make it to the charity event on time. "I have to go now," he explained, "but I'll check back in with Detective Miller later this afternoon." As he walked out of the police station towards his parked car, Michael's mind raced with 1,000 possibilities. After 4 long, barren years filled with nothing but dead ends and crushing disappointment, he finally had something tangible, a concrete lead. And he absolutely wasn't going to let this precious opportunity slip away. The designated sports club center was already bustling with activity when Michael arrived a little later than planned. Colorful Olympic-themed banners decorated the walls of the main event hall, and the faint, familiar smell of chlorine drifting from the adjacent swimming pool permeated the air. Volunteers wearing matching event t-shirts cheerfully directed guests towards the reception area, and a small, elevated stage had been set up at the front of the room for the speakers. An event organizer spotted Michael immediately and hurried over, looking slightly flustered. "Mr. Anderson, we were beginning to get a little worried. You're scheduled to speak in just 15 minutes. I'm so sorry for cutting it close." Michael apologized sincerely, quickly following her behind the stage area. "No problem at all. We completely understand you're a very busy man," she replied graciously, gesturing for him to take a seat in the waiting area. "We'll just quickly touch up your appearance a bit before you go on stage." The preparation was minimal, just a quick dusting of powder to prevent the bright stage lights from washing out his features. This was primarily a local community event, after all, not a major televised appearance. Michael tried earnestly to focus his thoughts on the speech about water safety he had carefully prepared weeks ago, but his mind kept uncontrollably drifting back to the stunning revelations from the GoPro footage. Olivia's voice, so incredibly clear and vibrant after all this time, and the enigmatic young man, Danny, who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the ocean. 5 minutes, Mr. Anderson," the organizer reminded him gently, handing him a bottle of water. When it was finally his turn, Michael stepped onto the stage, greeted by polite, welcoming applause from the assembled audience. The crowd consisted mostly of former athletes, respected coaches, and dedicated supporters of the local swimming community, people who cared deeply about water sports. Everyone present undoubtedly knew about Olivia's tragic disappearance 4 years prior. It had been a significant local tragedy, deeply affecting the tight-knit coastal town, although the story had never gained significant traction or developed into a major national news event. The official narrative, widely accepted over time, had eventually settled on a heartbreaking drowning accident during a solo training swim. Sadly, not an entirely unheard of occurrence, even among experienced open-water swimmers. Michael cleared his throat and began delivering his prepared speech, focusing on the crucial importance of water safety awareness and the vital need for supporting young, aspiring athletes in their pursuits. He spoke passionately about resilience and unwavering determination, qualities his beloved daughter Olivia had embodied so completely. The audience listened attentively, nodding in agreement and offering applause at appropriate moments throughout his talk. After receiving thunderous applause at the conclusion of his speech, Michael stepped down from the stage and made his way toward a table where several of his old friends from his own competitive swimming days were waiting for him. They greeted him warmly, clapping him affectionately on the back and pulling out an empty chair for him to join them. "That was a great speech, Michael," said Tom, a former Olympic swimmer who had trained alongside Michael decades ago. "You always did have a natural way with words." "Thanks, Tom," Michael replied gratefully, accepting a glass of water offered to him. His mind was still whirling intensely from the day's incredible discoveries, and he found he couldn't help but share the news with his trusted friends. "Listen, guys," he began, leaning in closer, "something absolutely incredible happened earlier today. I actually found Olivia's GoPro camera." His friends stared back at him in stunned disbelief. "After 4 whole years?" asked Mike, another former athlete sitting at the table. "Where on earth did you find it?" "It was strapped securely to a remote buoy, miles out from her usual training route," Michael explained quickly. "And incredibly, it still had footage on it from the very day she disappeared." Lowering his voice significantly, he described what he and the forensic tech had seen at the police station just hours before and showed them the picture he had taken of the distinctive boat logo displayed on his phone screen. Tom leaned in for a closer look at the image. "Hey, that's the Ocean Elite Marine logo," he identified immediately. "They're one of the newer local companies that have been actively sponsoring some of our local athletes currently in the Olympic development program that definitely weren't around back in our competitive days. They only really became prominent in the Crescent Bay area within the last 7 years or so." "Really?" Michael asked, his interest piqued. "Do you happen to know anything else about them?" "Not a whole lot, really," Tom replied thoughtfully, "except that they've been quite generous with donating equipment and providing transportation assistance for various water-based athletes training locally. In fact," he added suddenly, gesturing across the crowded event hall, "they actually have a promotional booth set up right over there against the far wall." Michael immediately turned his head to look where Tom was pointing. Sure enough, a sleek, modern display booth prominently featuring the Ocean Elite Marine logo stood against the far wall, currently staffed by 2 men dressed in matching company polo shirts. "I'm going to go talk to them right now," Michael declared, standing up abruptly from the table. His friends exchanged concerned glances, sensing his intensity, but wisely didn't try to stop him. Michael approached the Ocean Elite Marine booth with measured, deliberate steps, trying his best to appear casual and nonchalant despite the frantic pounding of his heart against his ribs. The 2 staff members looked up expectantly as he drew near. One appeared middle-aged with noticeable graying temples, while the other was considerably younger, sporting an eager, almost forced smile. "Good afternoon, sir." The older man greeted him politely. "Are you perhaps interested in learning more about our top-of-the-line water sports equipment?" "Actually, I'm more curious about your company itself," Michael replied smoothly. "I understand that you sponsor local Olympic hopefuls." "Yes, we certainly do indeed," the younger man jumped in enthusiastically. "It's a key part of our corporate social responsibility program. We proudly provide boats, essential equipment, and transportation support for promising young athletes who might not otherwise have the necessary resources to train effectively at an elite level." "That's certainly very commendable," Michael acknowledged, pausing briefly before carefully adding, "By any chance, do either of you happen to know someone named Danny who might be associated with your company?" The two men instantly exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible glance, and their previously welcoming smiles faltered noticeably. Danny, the older man, repeated slowly, stalling for time. There might be several employees with that first name working for us. Do you happen to have a last name for him?" Michael shook his head slightly, then decided to take a calculated risk. He pulled out his phone again and showed them the screenshot he had taken earlier of the speedboat displaying their company logo. "I'm actually trying to identify this particular boat," he explained calmly, "and possibly locate a young man named Danny who might have been using it around 4 years ago." The reaction from both men was immediate and utterly unmistakable. They both visibly tensed, their previously friendly demeanor evaporating instantly, replaced by an obvious, palpable nervousness. I'm not really sure about that specific vessel," the younger man stammered, avoiding eye contact. "We operate quite a large fleet of boats, you see." The older man quickly interjected, his tone becoming more dismissive. "If you require specific information about any of our boats or their usage logs, you really should speak directly with the operations staff down at the main marina. We're primarily just here today for marketing and promotional purposes." Michael thanked them politely for their time and walked away, his suspicions now significantly heightened by their clearly evasive and nervous reaction. As he headed back toward his friend's table, he casually glanced back over his shoulder at the Ocean Elite booth. He saw that the younger staff member had abruptly stepped away from the display and was now pacing anxiously back and forth a short distance away, holding a phone pressed tightly to his ear. The man ran a hand agitatedly through his hair several times, then quickly motioned to his older colleague. Within moments, the two of them began hastily packing up their display materials, clearly preparing to leave the event much earlier than expected. Michael immediately changed direction again, bypassing his friend's table entirely and heading straight for the main exit of the event hall. Something felt profoundly wrong about their sudden departure, and his gut instincts, the same finely tuned instincts that had kept him safe during countless dangerous dives over the years, were screaming at him to follow these men. As he neared the exit doors, the event organizer intercepted him again, looking concerned. "Mr. Anderson, where are you going so suddenly? You're supposed to give the closing remarks in about 20 minutes. "I'm truly sorry," Michael stated firmly, meeting her gaze directly. "There's been a sudden family emergency. I absolutely have to go right now." Without waiting for her response, he pushed through the doors and hurried out into the parking lot. He was just in time to see the two men quickly loading the last of their equipment into a large van prominently emblazoned with the Ocean Elite Marine logo on its side panels. Michael rushed frantically to his own car nearby, his heart pounding erratically in his chest. What he was about to do felt impulsive, perhaps even reckless and foolish, but he couldn't shake the overwhelming, gut-wrenching feeling that these two men were somehow directly connected to Olivia's disappearance 4 years ago. As the Ocean Elite Marine Company van pulled out of the parking lot and onto the main road, Michael quickly started his engine, firmly determined to follow them and uncover whatever dark truth they were so desperately trying to hide. Michael kept a careful, conservative distance behind the Ocean Elite Marine van as it navigated the winding coastal roads leading out of Crescent Bay. The rational part of his mind relentlessly questioned the wisdom of his actions, tailing complete strangers based solely on a gut hunch and their nervous reaction to a single name. But the grieving father deep inside him, the part that had never, ever stopped searching for Olivia, instinctively knew this was far too significant to be mere coincidence. Please let this lead somewhere meaningful," he whispered aloud, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel tightly. His phone suddenly rang, startling him momentarily. Detective Miller's name flashed insistently on the screen. Michael quickly answered the call, using his car's hands-free Bluetooth system. "Mr. Anderson, I've just finished reviewing the GoPro footage myself," Detective Miller stated without any preamble, his voice urgent. "I've already put together a tactical team, and we're heading down to the main marina right now to begin a formal investigation into Ocean Elite Marine. Actually, our team back at the station has already been in contact with the company's main office earlier this afternoon regarding the initial findings from the camera related to your daughter's case, he added quickly. I'm already on it, Detective, Michael replied intently, keeping his eyes firmly fixed on the van several car lengths ahead. I'm currently following 2 of their employees right now. They were working the company booth at that charity event I mentioned, but they packed up and left very suddenly, right after I asked them about Danny and showed them the image of the boat from the footage. Following them, Miller's voice instantly sharpened with concern. Michael, that could potentially be extremely dangerous. Are you absolutely certain these men pose an immediate threat? No, I'm not certain they're dangerous, Michael admitted honestly, but they're definitely acting highly suspicious. They tried to claim they were just low-level marketing staff, but they seemed genuinely frightened the moment I mentioned Danny's name. Where exactly are they heading now? Are they going towards the main marina? Miller inquired. Michael frowned as the van unexpectedly signaled and turned onto a narrow side road, clearly moving away from the direction of the main harbor complex. No, actually, he reported, they're going in the complete opposite direction now. They just took the coastal highway heading north past the main headland. Okay, share your current GPS location with me immediately through the app, Miller instructed firmly. And Michael, please be extremely careful. Do not attempt to approach these men yourself under any circumstances. Call me back immediately if anything happens or if they stop. Will do, Detective, Michael promised, then ended the call. He fully intended to share his location as requested, but just then the van ahead suddenly accelerated significantly, forcing Michael to speed up rapidly just to keep them within sight. In his haste to maintain the pursuit, he completely forgot about Miller's urgent request to share his location. The winding coastal road curved sharply around a rugged, scenic headland, offering breathtaking panoramic views of the turbulent ocean on one side and steep, imposing cliffs dropping dramatically on the other. After traveling several more miles, the van ahead signaled again and abruptly turned down a very narrow, completely unmarked dirt road that Michael had never even noticed before during his previous drives along this route. He slowed his own car considerably, waiting until the van disappeared around a sharp bend in the overgrown track before cautiously following. The rough road descended steeply down towards the rocky coastline below, eventually ending at what appeared to be a completely abandoned and derelict marina complex. Unlike the bustling main harbor back in Crescent Bay, this forgotten facility was clearly dilapidated, featuring heavily rusted docks leaning precariously and several weathered, neglected buildings scattered around the property. The Ocean Elite van pulled up near one of the larger, dilapidated structures and parked. Michael stopped his car well before reaching the actual marina entrance, carefully parking it behind a dense stand of tall coastal pines that offered excellent cover. He noted there were no other vehicles anywhere in sight, which would make his own car stand out conspicuously if he drove any closer. This definitely doesn't look like an active Ocean Elite Marine facility, he murmured uneasily to himself, quickly cutting his engine. Exiting his car as quietly as possible, Michael approached the abandoned marina cautiously on foot, ensuring he stayed hidden behind clumps of overgrown vegetation and piles of old, discarded boating equipment scattered haphazardly around the perimeter. From his concealed vantage point, he watched as the 2 men he recognized from the charity event began unloading several large, heavy boxes from the back of their van. They carried the boxes down towards the main dock area, where they met up with 3 other unidentified men who appeared to have been waiting for them. Just as Michael crept closer, trying desperately to get within earshot of their conversation, a large, powerful speedboat, more accurately described as a high-performance crossover vessel, approached the main dock swiftly from the open water. 3 more men quickly disembarked from the speedboat, greeting the others already on the dock with visibly tense expressions. We need to move extremely quickly now, one of the newcomers stated urgently, his voice just loud enough for Michael to overhear clearly. Secure the entire area immediately. The boss is already waiting out on the main yacht, and believe me, He's definitely not happy about this situation. Michael quickly ducked down behind a stack of old, rusted fuel barrels as two of the men began methodically patrolling the perimeter of the abandoned marina. He found a slightly better hiding spot beneath a large, tattered tarpaulin that was covering what appeared to be a pile of old boat parts. He remained perfectly motionless, holding his breath as one of the patrolling guards passed just feet away from his hiding place. From his concealed position beneath the tarp, Michael suddenly heard the distinct sound of another vehicle approaching the marina. He heard car doors opening and closing, followed by several gruff male voices, and then a sound that sent ice-cold dread coursing through his veins. The unmistakable, muffled sound of women whimpering softly in fear. "Get them all on the boat now," a harsh, commanding voice ordered sharply. "Keep your heads down low and stay completely quiet. You understand?" "Please," a female voice begged softly, her tone trembling with desperation. "We've done everything you asked us to do. Shut up right now and move," came the brutal, uncaring reply. The distinct sound of footsteps hurrying along the old wooden dock followed, then the deep rumble of the powerful speedboat's engine starting up. Michael desperately wanted to risk looking out, to see if Olivia might possibly be among the frightened women being forced onto the boat, but he didn't dare emerge from his hiding place while the armed guards were still actively patrolling the immediate area. As the speedboat's engine noise gradually faded into the distance, heading out towards the open sea, Michael overheard two of the remaining men conversing nearby. "How the hell could this happen?" one man said, his voice strained and laced with obvious worry. "I have absolutely no idea," the other replied grimly. "They've all been kept perfectly safe and hidden away for 4 damn years, and now, all of a sudden, the police start sniffing around them. Maybe someone on the inside leaked something critical, or maybe one of those damn girls managed to talk to someone somehow. Whatever happened, the boss is going absolutely ballistic right now. Said if we don't clean up this entire mess immediately, we'll all be joining those other guys from last year down at the bottom of the shipping channel. Let's just get the hell out of here now. We've done our part." Michael remained perfectly still, barely breathing, as the men returned quickly to their van and drove away from the abandoned marina. Only when the sound of their vehicle's engine had completely faded into the distance did he cautiously emerge from his hiding place beneath the tarp. Standing alone on the deserted, rotting dock, he stared out intently at the vast, empty ocean where the speedboat carrying the women had disappeared just minutes before. His absolute worst fears were now terrifyingly confirmed. Olivia hadn't drowned in a tragic training accident 4 years ago. She had been deliberately taken, abducted, and based on the chilling conversation he had just overheard, it seemed horrifyingly possible that she might have been held captive, hidden away, for the entire 4 years she had been missing. With hands shaking violently, Michael pulled out his phone and immediately called Detective Miller again. "Michael, where the hell are you?" Miller demanded the moment he answered, his voice sharp with frustration. "You never shared your location with me like I asked. I'm at an old, abandoned marina complex located about 10 miles north of Crescent Bay," Michael reported urgently, his voice strained. "It's situated just beyond the northern headland, down a completely unmarked access road. Detective, I just witnessed what I strongly believe is an active human trafficking operation, and it directly involves Ocean Elite Marine." "Human trafficking?" Miller repeated sharply, the shock evident in his voice. "Yes," Michael confirmed desperately. "I overheard them talking specifically about girls they've managed to keep safe and hidden for exactly 4 years, the precise amount of time Olivia has been missing. And just minutes ago, I saw a speedboat taking several women somewhere offshore toward a larger vessel." "Detective," Michael's voice broke with emotion, "I think my daughter, Olivia, might actually be one of them." "Okay, stay exactly where you are right now, Michael," Miller ordered firmly. "We'll dispatch units to your current location immediately." "No," Michael countered forcefully. "Don't waste time coming out here. There's absolutely nothing left for you to find at this location now. We need to follow that speedboat immediately. I'm heading back towards the main Crescent Bay Marina right now. Meet me there as quickly as possible with whatever police boats you can get mobilized on short notice." I know these waters like the back of my hand, Detective. I can help you track them down. There was a brief, tense pause on the line before Miller finally replied. All right, Michael. We'll coordinate immediately with Harbor Patrol and the Coast Guard. We'll meet you down at the main marina emergency dock in approximately 20 minutes. Please hurry, Detective, Michael pleaded desperately. I truly think they're moving the girls right now, specifically because they somehow know we're finally onto them. This might honestly be our only chance to get them back safely. He ended the call abruptly and raced back towards his hidden car, his mind reeling chaotically from the horrifying reality he had just uncovered. After 4 long, agonizing years of believing Olivia had tragically drowned, the actual truth was infinitely more horrifying. But amidst the horror, there was also a fragile, desperate sliver of hope. If she was indeed still being held captive after all this time, then she might still be alive. And if Olivia was still alive, Michael Anderson swore to himself, he was going to find her and bring her home, no matter what dangers lay ahead, no matter what it took. Michael's tires screeched loudly as he pulled his car hastily into the Crescent Bay Marina parking lot. Detective Miller was already there, waiting anxiously alongside 4 other uniformed police officers, several Harbor Patrol officers, and members of the U.S. Coast Guard. Michael, Miller called out, waving him over urgently to where the group had gathered near the main emergency response dock. 2 sleek police interceptor boats and a larger, more formidable Coast Guard vessel were being rapidly prepared for immediate departure. Michael rushed over, still breathing heavily, his body coursing with adrenaline. They're taking him out to a larger yet anchored somewhere offshore, he reported quickly, relaying the crucial detail he'd overheard. I distinctly heard one of them say, "The boss is waiting on the yacht." Miller nodded grimly, absorbing the information. We've already got additional Marine units standing by further down the coast, and we have a police helicopter en route right now. Harbor Patrol has been actively tracking the specific high-performance crossover boat you described using their coastal surveillance radar system. A Harbor Patrol officer stepped forward quickly, holding a tablet computer in his hand. The target vessel was last visually confirmed heading southeast along the coastline, approximately 7 nautical miles offshore, he reported efficiently. Its current high speed strongly suggests it's making its way towards the Channel Islands area. That's exactly where they're going, Michael stated with absolute certainty, based on his intimate knowledge of the local waters. There are literally dozens of small, secluded coves and inlets scattered all around those islands where a large yacht could easily anchor undetected without drawing any unwanted attention. Miller turned to face Michael directly. Michael, I truly appreciate all your help in uncovering this horrific situation, but I absolutely need you to stay here on shore now while we handle the tactical operation from this point forward. No way, Detective, Michael stated firmly, his jaw set determinedly. I'm coming with you. Michael, this isn't a request. It's an order, Miller countered sternly. This is potentially an extremely dangerous situation involving heavily armed and desperate criminals. I know these Pacific waters, especially around the islands, better than anyone else here, Michael insisted forcefully, his voice rising slightly with emotion. I've been diving extensively all around those islands for over 20 years now. There are hidden underwater caves, secret approaches only accessible by small craft, and treacherous, unpredictable currents that your teams won't know about. Miller hesitated visibly, clearly torn between strictly following official police protocol and recognizing the undeniable strategic value of Michael's unparalleled local expertise. Besides, Michael added more quietly, his voice thick with emotion, if Olivia is actually on that yacht out there right now, I absolutely need to be there when you find her. She hasn't seen me in 4 long years. She's going to be absolutely terrified, completely traumatized. She's going to need her father there with her. The detective sighed deeply, running a hand tiredly over his face, then finally nodded his reluctant agreement. Fine, Michael. You can come aboard the lead police boat with me, but you follow my direct orders without question. If we encounter any armed resistance whatsoever, you stay back and take cover immediately. Understood. Understood, Detective. Absolutely. Michael agreed without hesitation. They boarded the lead police vessel quickly, Michael immediately helping the experienced boat captain plot the most direct and efficient intercept course based on the speedboat's last known heading and speed. As their powerful boat pulled swiftly away from the dock, its engines roaring, Michael felt a strange, disorienting mixture of gut-wrenching terror and overwhelming hope churning within him. After 4 long, agonizing years of relentless searching, he might finally find Olivia. But what condition would she be in after such an ordeal? What horrors had these monstrous people subjected her to over the years? The police radio crackled urgently to life. Air unit is now airborne. Estimated time of arrival to the primary search area is 15 minutes. Miller calmly acknowledged the transmission, then turned his attention back to Michael. We have officers back at the station thoroughly researching Ocean Elite Marine right now. On the surface, the company appears completely legitimate. They sponsor local athletes, provide equipment for various competitions, engage in the usual corporate community involvement activities. But we're digging much deeper now, looking closely into their complex ownership structure and suspicious financial dealings. The men back at the abandoned marina mentioned the boss, Michael recalled grimly. Someone apparently important and powerful enough to have his own people absolutely terrified of disappointing him. Don't worry, Michael. We'll find out exactly who's behind this entire operation, Miller promised firmly. But right now, our absolute top priority is rescuing those women safely. The police boats sliced through the choppy water at maximum speed, the salty ocean spray stinging Michael's face as they raced desperately against the clock. Soon, the police helicopter appeared high overhead, its powerful rotors thundering loudly as it swept ahead of the boats to begin the aerial search for the target vessels. After nearly an hour of high-speed travel, the radio crackled again with an update. This is Air Unit 1. We've spotted a crossover-style speedboat approaching a large white yacht approximately 12 nautical miles southeast of your current position. Sending precise coordinates now. The police boat captain immediately adjusted their course based on the new coordinates. As they neared the location, they significantly reduced their speed to avoid premature detection, relying on the helicopter hovering high above to serve as their eyes in the sky. Air Unit 1 reports the target crossover has now reached the yacht, the radio operator on board announced moments later. They appear to be actively transferring people on board the larger vessel right now. Michael quickly grabbed a pair of high-powered binoculars from the boat's cabin and scanned the distant horizon intently. After a tense moment, he spotted them. A sleek, luxurious white yacht, with a smaller crossover speedboat now secured tightly alongside it. I see them, he confirmed, his voice tight with nervous tension. They're about 2 miles straight ahead. Through the powerful magnification of the binoculars, Michael watched intently as several figures moved rapidly about on the main deck of the yacht. Even from this considerable distance, he could clearly make out what appeared to be 3 women dressed in dark clothing being quickly escorted below deck by several men. His heart pounded painfully against his ribs. Could one of those women possibly be Olivia? All units, maintain current approach speed, Detective Miller ordered calmly through the secure radio channel. We don't want to alert them to our presence until we're significantly closer. The heavily armed tactical officers on board the police boats began methodically preparing their gear, meticulously checking their weapons, and ensuring their communication equipment was fully functional. One tactical team member was already fully suited up in advanced diving gear, completely ready to enter the water immediately if the situation required it. Air Unit 1 reports sudden movement on the yacht. The radio operator announced urgently. They appear to have spotted us or the helicopter. The yacht is now getting underway, attempting to flee. Full speed ahead now. Miller commanded instantly, and the boat's powerful engines roared back to life as they surged forward aggressively through the waves. Michael kept his binoculars trained steadfastly on the fleeing yacht. The crossover boat is pulling away from the yacht now, he reported urgently. I can see 2 armed men visible on its deck. As the police boats rapidly closed the distance, The crossover boat suddenly changed course dramatically, turning sharply and heading directly towards the lead police vessel. They're going to try to intercept us. They're creating a diversion, the boat captain warned loudly over the roar of the engines. Air unit, can you maintain constant visual on the fleeing yacht? Miller called urgently into the radio. Affirmative, came the pilot's immediate response. The yacht is increasing speed rapidly, heading due south now. Wait, hold on. We're seeing unexpected movement on the main deck again. The women are being brought back up topside, and it appears they're being forced to put on diving equipment. Diving equipment? Michael echoed incredulously, a fresh wave of alarm shooting through him like electricity. Oh God, no. They're going to put them in the water. There are extensive underwater cave systems all through this specific area. If they know the layout of those caves, they could disappear down there completely, and we'd never find them. Miller immediately relayed this critical information to the helicopter unit and the other pursuing police boats. We need to move in now. Engage immediately. If they manage to get those women underwater into the cave entrances, we might lose them for good. The aggressive crossover boat was now clearly visible off their port bow, racing directly toward them at high speed with two men clearly visible on its deck, brandishing automatic weapons. They've definitely spotted us, one of the tactical officers shouted, just as the yacht itself suddenly changed course again, attempting to evade. Move! Move! Get down! Everyone take cover immediately! Detective Miller shouted as the first sharp cracks of automatic gunfire erupted across the water towards them. Michael instinctively ducked low behind the relative safety of the boat's main cabin wall, his heart racing uncontrollably. The police helicopter swooped lower overhead, providing crucial covering fire and support from above, while the second police boat maneuvered skillfully to intercept the attacking crossover vessel. Through the ensuing chaos and noise, Michael somehow managed to keep his binoculars fixed steadily on the distant fleeing yacht. They're putting them into the water right now, he shouted desperately over the gunfire. The women and several of the men. They're all going overboard equipped with full diving gear. Hold your fire near the yacht. Michael shouted desperately to the tactical officers on his boat. If you accidentally hit one of those compressed air oxygen tanks, they could explode. The tactical team leader quickly relayed the urgent warning through his radio headset, and the helicopter pilot adjusted his approach angle, firing warning shots strategically near, but not directly at, the attacking crossover boat to deter it. We absolutely cannot let them get away, Detective Miller stated grimly, rapidly coordinating intercept tactics with the tactical team leader. 3 heavily equipped police officers in full diving gear were already preparing to enter the turbulent water. I'm going in too, Michael declared firmly, already moving instinctively towards the spare diving equipment stored nearby. Miller grabbed his arm forcefully. Absolutely not, Michael. You're staying right here on this boat. Detective, those underwater caves down there are like a complex maze. Michael argued desperately, his voice filled with urgency. Your divers don't know them like I do. If Olivia goes down into those caves, I might truly never find her again. Before Miller could respond further, more intense gunfire erupted suddenly from the aggressive crossover boat, forcing everyone on board to take cover once again. The police helicopter fired another volley of warning shots, finally succeeding in driving the attacking crossover boat away from their immediate position. In the momentary confusion of the firefight, when no one was looking directly his way, Michael seized his fleeting opportunity. He quickly grabbed a spare diving mask, a pair of swim fins, and a spare emergency breathing apparatus, a pony bottle, from the gear pile. It wasn't a complete scuba set. Crucially, there was no main oxygen tank, but it would have to suffice in this desperate situation. While the police officers remained focused on the ongoing firefight with the retreating crossover boat, Michael slipped quickly and quietly over the side of the police boat and into the churning, cold ocean water below. The initial shock of the cold water momentarily stole his breath, but decades of ingrained diving experience immediately took over his movements. He surfaced just once briefly, quickly getting his bearings and spotting the now distant yacht approximately 500 yards away across the waves. Then, taking a final deep breath, he dove beneath the turbulent surface, swimming with powerful, determined strokes directly toward the only thing in the entire world that mattered to him now: finding his daughter Olivia before she disappeared forever into the darkness below. "Please, Olivia," he thought desperately as he surged through the water, his muscles already starting to burn. "Just hold on a little longer. Dad's coming for you." Michael swam with powerful, desperate strokes, propelling himself relentlessly toward the area where he had last seen the kidnappers and their captives disappear beneath the waves. He knew he couldn't stay submerged for long without a proper air tank, so he was forced to alternate between swimming rapidly on the surface and taking brief, shallow dives, desperately trying to catch glimpses of the divers moving in the depths below him. During one such brief dive, he finally spotted them. The team of police divers had successfully intercepted the fleeing kidnappers about 30 feet below the ocean surface. A chaotic underwater struggle was now unfolding in eerie slow motion in the murky depths. Michael could clearly see that each of the 3 captive women was still physically handcuffed to one of the male kidnappers, making it incredibly difficult and dangerous for the police divers to attempt to separate them safely. The criminal divers were armed with powerful spear guns, which they were actively using to keep the approaching police officers at bay. He watched helplessly as one brave rescue officer desperately tried to wrestle a spear gun away from a struggling kidnapper, while simultaneously attempting to shield the terrified woman handcuffed helplessly to him. Michael surfaced again, gasping desperately for air, his lungs burning painfully. He realized with frustration that he couldn't effectively help in the underwater fight, not without proper scuba equipment, and certainly not against multiple armed opponents. But perhaps, he thought frantically, perhaps there was still something else he could do to help. Glancing around quickly, he noticed that in the midst of the surrounding chaos, everyone's attention seemed completely focused on either the intense underwater struggle below or the ongoing armed standoff occurring between the police boats and a retreating crossover vessel further away. The large white yacht itself now sat relatively unattended nearby, its remaining crew likely either engaged in the underwater fight or having already transferred to the escaping crossover boat. Michael made a split-second, risky decision. Instead of diving back down towards the underwater melee, he changed direction and began swimming stealthily toward the vulnerable yacht. He approached cautiously from the stern, where he calculated he would be least likely to be seen from the remaining vessels. Using climbing skills honed over decades spent diving around challenging coastal structures, he managed to pull himself up silently onto the yacht's lowered swimming platform and quickly rolled onto the main deck, dripping wet and gasping for breath. After catching his breath for a precious moment, Michael began creeping cautiously along the deserted deck, staying low to the ground and desperately searching for anything he could potentially use as a weapon or tool to help in the rescue effort. In the yacht's well-equipped dive preparation area near the stern, he found exactly what he was looking for: a storage rack holding several powerful spear guns, apparently readied for use but then hastily abandoned in the sudden rush to evacuate the vessel. Michael quickly grabbed one of the heavy spear guns, swiftly checking to ensure it was loaded and ready to fire. His immediate plan was to quickly return to the water, now properly armed, and try to actively help free Olivia from her captor. But just as he turned to head back towards the stern swimming platform, he heard the unmistakable, chilling click of a gun hammer being cocked directly behind him. "Don't you move a muscle," said a young man's voice, sounding slightly slurred and unsteady. "Leave the spear gun right there, or I swear I'll shoot you where you stand." Michael turned around slowly, deliberately, to face his unseen captor. Standing before him, swaying slightly, was a young man appearing to be in his early 20s, his wet dark hair slicked back carelessly from his forehead, his eyes noticeably bloodshot. He held a half-empty bottle of expensive liquor loosely in one hand and a deadly handgun clutched tightly in the other. Michael recognized him instantly from the GoPro footage recovered earlier. "Danny," Michael stated, his voice low, cold, and filled with dangerous resolve. "You're the one who took my daughter. I'm here now to take her back." Danny swayed again, the disorienting effects of the alcohol clearly evident in his unsteady stance and unfocused gaze. Her father, he slurred, a flicker of drunken recognition crossing his face. You're the diver guy she was always talking about back then. Just tell me why, Danny, Michael demanded, keeping the heavy spear gun pointed safely downward for the moment, but making no move to relinquish his grip on the weapon. Why did you take her? Why do any of this? Danny took another long, defiant swig directly from his liquor bottle, then roughly wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. We were making her a better future, he mumbled defensively. She was only 19, so damn talented. We were training her properly for the Olympics, giving her everything she needed. Michael scoffed derisively, his grip tightening instinctively on the spear gun's handle. By kidnapping her? By holding her prisoner against her will for 4 agonizing years. Don't you come any closer, Danny warned suddenly, raising his handgun unsteadily as Michael shifted his weight slightly. I didn't do nothing bad to them, you know, he added, his voice taking on a pleading tone. I wished I could have, but I wasn't even allowed to get near them most of the time. His face suddenly twisted with a strange mixture of resentment and bitterness. They were always just for my father, he confessed quietly. Michael's blood ran cold at the implication. Your father? He repeated, probing carefully. Danny nodded slowly, taking another unsteady step towards Michael, seemingly forgetting his own warning. It's a really sad thing when you think about it, he continued rambling, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I could only ever just help my old man get whatever he wanted. He really loves athletic young women. Always had a particular thing for them, you know? His whisper intensified. He could make her really successful, though, your daughter. Really famous. If only she did her job properly for him. Stay right where you are, Danny, Michael warned again firmly, raising the spear gun slightly as a clear deterrent. If you come any closer to me, I will shoot. But Danny seemed completely lost in his drunken confession now, apparently beyond hearing any warnings. He continued advancing unsteadily, the handgun in his hand wavering dangerously as he moved. Daniel, a sharp, commanding voice suddenly cut through the tense standoff like a knife. What the hell do you think you're doing up here? An older man abruptly appeared on the deck nearby, dressed immaculately in a crisp white shirt despite the surrounding chaos. He held a large-caliber handgun pointed directly and steadily at Michael's chest, his stance confident and menacing. The family resemblance between him and the younger Danny was instantly, starkly unmistakable. The same piercing eyes, the same defined jawline. But the older man's face was cruelly hardened, etched with years of ruthless authority and calculated cruelty. Drop the weapon now, or I'll shoot you myself. The man, clearly Danny's father, snarled menacingly at Michael. My useless son here obviously can't even do his one simple job properly. He then turned his cold, venomous gaze directly on his son, Danny. You admitted it, didn't you, boy? He accused sharply. You must have talked to the damn police about what we've been doing all these years. That's why they're suddenly sniffing all around us now, isn't it? I didn't tell the police anything, father. I swear. Danny protested vehemently, his voice suddenly sounding almost childlike and pleading. It wasn't me who talked. Shut up, his father spat contemptuously. Of course it was you. I know you always secretly wanted one of my special girls for yourself. Who else around here would have possibly talked? You've always been weak, Daniel. Always having pathetic second thoughts about everything we do. While the two men were momentarily distracted, locked in their bitter argument, Michael slowly, carefully adjusted his grip on the heavy spear gun, silently preparing himself to fire the weapon the instant he got a clear opportunity. I didn't say anything to anyone, father, Danny insisted again desperately, his face flushed crimson with a volatile combination of alcohol and raw emotion. I swear it on my life. It doesn't even matter now anyway, the older man, Richard Vance, stated dismissively, turning his full, cold attention back towards Michael. So, you're the famous diver father she mentioned, aren't you? He sneered. Been searching relentlessly for your precious little girl all this time, have you? Well, I'm afraid your long search finally ends right here, right now. Richard Vance deliberately raised his handgun, aiming it directly at Michael's head with chilling precision. I've built far too much, sacrificed far too much, to let someone insignificant like you destroy everything I've worked for. In that terrifying split second, two gunshots rang out almost simultaneously across the deck. Danny, in a moment of drunken desperation or perhaps calculated betrayal, fired his handgun wildly at his own father, the bullet striking Richard Vance unexpectedly in the side of the head. At the exact same moment, Michael instinctively fired the powerful spear gun he held. It had initially been aimed directly at the menacing father, Richard, but without the expected resistance of water slowing its trajectory. The heavy spear flew somewhat erratically through the air. It completely missed its intended target and instead embedded itself deeply into Danny's shoulder. The chaotic, unpredictable force of the spear striking him sent Danny reeling backward violently across the deck. The older man, Richard Vance, crumpled instantly to the yacht's deck without a sound, a dark pool of blood rapidly spreading beneath his head. Danny stood frozen for a moment, the handgun still gripped tightly in his trembling hand, his entire body rigid with profound shock. Intense pain radiated sharply through his injured shoulder where the spear gun's heavy bolt had embedded itself deeply into flesh and bone. But remarkably, he didn't move, didn't even flinch. His wide, vacant eyes remained locked onto his father's lifeless body lying on the deck, as though his mind couldn't fully comprehend the shocking finality of what had just happened. His breath came in shallow, ragged gasps, each one punctuated by a sharp, involuntary throb of intense pain from his wounded shoulder. After what felt like an agonizing eternity, suspended in time, he slowly raised the liquor bottle back to his lips, the burning liquid sliding harshly down his throat. "I hate you, Richard," he muttered hoarsely, the words barely audible, yet tinged with a complex, disturbing mixture of raw grief and seething, long-suppressed anger. The shocking tableau was suddenly broken by a sharp, searing pain erupting in Michael's own leg. Looking down quickly, he realized with horror that Richard Vance had managed to fire his own weapon reflexively as he fell. Blood was already soaking rapidly through the fabric of Michael's pants where the bullet had struck him forcefully in the thigh. Despite the intense, searing pain now consuming him, Michael seized the critical moment of confusion. He hobbled painfully but quickly to the edge of the yacht's deck and dove back into the relative safety of the churning water below. Bleeding heavily and now in agony, he began swimming desperately towards the area where the underwater struggle was still continuing, fiercely determined to reach Olivia before his own strength completely gave out. The cold ocean water momentarily numbed the burning pain in his injured leg, but each powerful kick sent fresh waves of agony shooting through his body. A visible trail of blood streamed behind him in the water as he swam doggedly toward the front of the yacht, where he had last seen Olivia fighting her captor. Underwater, through the swirling chaos, Michael could see the desperate struggle still raging. The highly trained police divers had fully engaged the remaining kidnappers, working diligently and courageously to free the terrified women who were still physically handcuffed to their desperate captives. Through the churning water, obscured by streams of rising air bubbles, Michael finally spotted Olivia, still fighting fiercely against the large man who held her captive. With the very last dregs of his rapidly failing strength, Michael swam directly towards them. The kidnapper holding Olivia saw him approaching and quickly raised a spear gun of his own, aiming it directly at Michael. Michael was now completely unarmed, defenseless, possessing nothing left but his unwavering, primal determination to save his daughter. Just as the kidnapper took final aim, Michael saw one of the police divers rapidly approaching the man from behind. In a moment of perfect, unspoken coordination, the brave officer grabbed the kidnapper's arm firmly just as he fired the spear gun, causing the deadly spear to miss Michael by mere inches, zipping past his head in the water. Jack reached Olivia and the struggling kidnapper simultaneously. Despite his rapidly weakening state from blood loss and exhaustion, he managed to grab the man's essential dive regulator and forcefully yank it from his mouth, disrupting his breathing. The sudden, unexpected loss of his air supply caused the kidnapper to panic instantly, momentarily loosening his desperate grip on Olivia. Together, Michael and the police diver quickly overpowered the disoriented and struggling kidnapper. The officer rapidly used specialized cutting tools to sever the heavy handcuffs binding Olivia securely to her captor, finally freeing her after 4 long, unimaginable years of captivity. Michael's vision began to darken significantly around the edges as the severe blood loss and sheer physical exhaustion finally took their inevitable toll. The very last thing he saw before consciousness slipped completely away from him was Olivia's face floating before him in the water, her eyes wide with stunned recognition, profound disbelief, and overwhelming relief as she reached out her hand desperately towards him through the swirling blue water. Michael awoke slowly, disoriented, to the steady, rhythmic beeping of medical monitoring equipment and the gentle, rocking motion of a large boat moving through the water. Blinking his eyes rapidly against the harsh overhead light, he gradually realized he was lying strapped onto a stretcher inside what appeared to be a well-equipped Coast Guard response vessel. A uniformed medic was skillfully applying firm pressure to his bleeding leg wound, while another nearby monitored his vital signs closely on a portable screen. "He's conscious now," the first medic called out to someone nearby. "Mr. Anderson, please try not to move too much right now. You've lost a significant amount of blood." Michael immediately tried to sit up despite the stern warning. "Olivia," he croaked out, his voice rough and weak. Where's my daughter?" "Dad? Dad, I'm right here," came a beloved voice he had longed desperately to hear every single day for 4 agonizing years. Olivia appeared instantly at his side, still wearing the dark diving suit she'd been forced into, but now with a thick, warm blanket draped comfortingly over her trembling shoulders. Her face looked noticeably thinner than he remembered, and her beautiful eyes held deep shadows and a haunted look that hadn't been there before her abduction. But she was alive. She was real, standing right beside him. "Olivia," he whispered again, tears welling in his eyes as he weakly reached out for her hand. You're safe now." She took his hand immediately, her own tears streaming freely down her face as she squeezed his fingers tightly. "You found me, Dad," she sobbed softly. "After all this impossibly long time, you actually found me." Michael tried desperately to respond, to offer words of comfort, but a sudden, sharp wave of intense pain from his leg wound cut his words short, causing him to gasp. The medic quickly intervened, gently pushing Olivia back slightly. "Ma'am, he needs immediate medical attention right now. That bullet absolutely needs to come out as soon as possible." Another attentive medic approached, addressing Olivia and the 2 other rescued young women, Sarah and Emily, who were huddled closely nearby, wrapped in blankets. "Ladies, we need to thoroughly check all of you for any injuries as well. You've all been through an incredibly traumatic experience." One of the other rescued women, Sarah, who was blonde and visibly shaking uncontrollably, spoke up timidly. Are they all gone now? The men who kept us there?" A uniformed police officer standing nearby nodded reassuringly. "Yes, ma'am. We've successfully neutralized the immediate threat." 2 of the primary kidnappers involved in the crossover boat attack were unfortunately killed during the exchange of fire. We've arrested the main yacht captain and 3 other accomplices found on board, including the son, Daniel Vance. The overwhelming relief evident on the faces of the 3 rescued women was palpable, almost tangible. The third woman, Emily, who was dark-haired and looked painfully gaunt, began to sob quietly, burying her face in her hands. Detective Miller appeared then at the side of Michael's stretcher, his expression a complex mixture of professional satisfaction and genuine personal concern as he looked down at Michael. "You're one hell of a stubborn man, Anderson," he stated gruffly, shaking his head slightly. "What you did back there, That was either the single bravest or the absolute most foolish thing I think I've ever witnessed in my entire career. Michael managed a weak, pained smile in response. Did you get them all, Detective? We believe so, yes, Miller confirmed. The entire horrific operation seems to have been run primarily by Richard Vance, the older man who was killed on board the yacht during the confrontation. He's been confirmed as the sole owner of Ocean Elite Marine, among several other seemingly legitimate businesses he operated. Our preliminary investigation strongly suggests he's likely been targeting promising young female athletes like your daughter for years, apparently using his son Daniel to help identify potential targets and carry out the initial abductions. He promised to make them successful, Michael recalled grimly from Danny's drunken confession. Miller nodded somberly, in exchange for their complete compliance and other things. We've already uncovered significant evidence linking Richard Vance directly to numerous athletic sponsorships and mentorship programs stretching back several years. The FBI is getting fully involved in the investigation now. This entire situation could potentially be much bigger, much more widespread than we initially thought. The detective then turned his attention gently towards Olivia. Miss Anderson, he began kindly, I know this is incredibly difficult for you right now, but can you possibly tell us just briefly what happened to you 4 years ago? A more detailed official statement can certainly wait until after you've received proper medical attention and had some time to rest. Olivia looked over at her father lying on the stretcher, appearing to draw strength and courage from his presence beside her. It started that day, out at the buoy, she began, her voice remarkably steadier now than Michael would have expected, given the circumstances. I was just training like usual, focusing on my swim, when Danny, approached me in the water. He seemed so friendly at first, just like any other swimmer out enjoying the ocean. We ended up racing out to Pelican's Reach, just for fun, and then on our way back toward shore, he mentioned his boat was anchored nearby and offered me a quick ride back to Crescent Bay. She paused for a moment, swallowing hard, the painful memory clearly surfacing. I was really tired from a long swim, she continued quietly, and honestly, I just thought it would be nice to rest on the boat for a few minutes before heading home. I completely forgot all about my GoPro camera that I'd left recording back on the buoy. Danny just seemed so normal, so completely harmless. Michael gently squeezed her hand again, offering silent encouragement for her to continue when she felt ready. But they didn't take me home, Dad, Olivia stated, her voice hardening slightly with remembered fear and anger. They drove the boat to Richard Vance's private estate instead, up the coast. And then they drugged me. When I finally woke up hours later, she continued, her voice trembling slightly now, I was locked inside a bedroom with Sarah and Emily. She gestured towards the 2 other women huddled nearby. Richard Vance, he told me he could make all my Olympic dreams come true. He bragged about having powerful connections and unlimited resources, said he could turn me into a world champion swimmer, but only if I cooperated completely with him, did everything he asked. Her voice hardened again with defiance. When I refused, when I fought back, he threatened to hurt you, Dad. He somehow knew everything about your diving company, about our house, even about your daily routines. He described exactly how he would make you suffer accidents if I didn't obey him completely. First, he said your business would mysteriously fail. Then our home would somehow burn down. And finally, you'd have a fatal diving incident out at sea. Michael felt physically sick with rage hearing this, bile rising in his throat, but he forced himself to keep his expression calm and supportive for Olivia's sake. So I stopped fighting back, Dad. Olivia continued, her voice barely above a whisper now, filled with shame. At least, I stopped fighting back openly. We trained every single day, swimming laps in the private lake on his massive property. We were always guarded, always watched constantly. He insisted we needed to stay in top physical shape, so we had to maintain our athletic builds for him. Sarah and Emily, they had already been held there longer than me. When I arrived, they warned me never to even think about trying to escape. They told me 2 other girls had tried to run away before I got there, and they were never seen or heard from again. The other two women nodded silently, tears streaming down their faces, confirming Olivia's harrowing account. Today was actually the first time we'd even been brought out onto the main yacht in months, Olivia added quickly. They were all panicking this morning, saying someone must have talked to the police somehow. Richard Vance was convinced it must have been his son, Daniel. Apparently, there had been growing tension between them for a long time. So, Richard ordered his men to move us immediately to another secret location he had prepared. Detective Miller looked incredibly grim, listening intently to her testimony. "You're all safe now," he reiterated firmly, meeting the eyes of each woman in turn. "We'll definitely need to get full, detailed statements from all of you later on, but right now, let's prioritize getting you all proper medical attention and care." The Coast Guard captain announced over the intercom that they were approaching the main Crescent Bay harbor. As the large vessel neared the designated emergency dock, Michael could clearly see several ambulances waiting patiently, their emergency lights flashing silently in the bright afternoon sun. "The paramedics on board will transfer you directly to the hospital from here," Detective Miller informed Michael kindly. "I'll need to get your official statement as well, of course, but only once the doctors have treated you and cleared you to talk." Michael nodded weakly, acknowledging the instructions. The intense pain in his wounded leg was intensifying significantly now as the initial adrenaline rush from the rescue finally began to fade. "The son, Daniel," he managed to say through gritted teeth, "he told me everything back on the yacht. He admitted what they were doing all along. We've got him securely in custody now," Michael, Miller assured him confidently. "Between your first-hand testimony about his confession and all the physical evidence we're already gathering from the yacht and the estate, believe me, neither he nor any of his father's surviving accomplices will be seeing freedom again anytime soon." As the Coast Guard vessel expertly docked alongside the pier, waiting medical teams rushed efficiently aboard. Michael was quickly and carefully transferred onto a waiting gurney, while other paramedics began attending compassionately to Olivia, Sarah, and Emily. Olivia clung tightly to Michael's hand as the paramedics began preparing him for transport to the ambulance. "Dad," she whispered tearfully, I should have been braver back there. I should have found some way to escape sooner." Despite the agonizing pain radiating from his leg, Michael managed a reassuring smile for his beloved daughter. "You survived, Olivia," he stated firmly, meeting her gaze. "That's the only thing that truly matters now. And, it's actually a pretty good thing you accidentally forgot that camera on the buoy that day, isn't it?" Fresh tears welled instantly in Olivia's eyes as she nodded slowly, finally understanding the incredible, almost unbelievable chain of events and the sheer coincidence that had ultimately led to her miraculous rescue. "I love you so much, Dad," she choked out. "I love you too, sweetheart," Michael replied, his own voice breaking with overwhelming emotion. "I never, ever stopped looking for you. Not even for one single day." The paramedics gently pulled them apart then, explaining kindly but firmly that Michael needed immediate surgery for his gunshot wound. Olivia reluctantly let go of his hand, watching with tears streaming down her face as they carefully loaded him into the waiting ambulance. "Don't worry, Miss Anderson. We'll take very good care of your father," one of the paramedics assured her gently. "And the police officers here will bring you and the other ladies to the same hospital right after your preliminary medical examinations are complete. You'll be able to see him again very soon, I promise." As the ambulance doors closed securely, Michael caught one final, indelible glimpse of Olivia standing bravely on the dock, surrounded by the comforting presence of police officers and medical personnel. Despite everything imaginable she had just endured over 4 long years, she stood remarkably tall, her strong swimmer's shoulders held straight and proud. Inside the ambulance, racing swiftly towards the hospital, sirens wailing, Michael reflected numbly on the unbelievable, whirlwind events of the day. Just that morning, he had been delivering a routine speech at a local charity event, merely continuing his hollow daily routine of existing without truly living, searching endlessly without any real hope left in his heart. Now, somehow, against all conceivable odds, he had actually found his precious daughter and finally brought her home. He knew the path ahead would certainly not be easy. Olivia, Sarah, and Emily would undoubtedly carry the deep, emotional, and psychological scars of their horrific captivity for many years to come, perhaps forever. There would be difficult official statements to give, stressful criminal trials to endure, and long, arduous journeys of healing required for all of them, including himself. But lying there on a stretcher, despite the intense physical pain for the very first time in 4 long, empty years, Michael Anderson felt truly, profoundly alive again. His daughter was safe. She was finally free, and he silently vowed to himself right then and there that he would never, ever let her out of his sight again. As the powerful pain medication administered by the paramedics began to take full effect and consciousness started to gently slip away from him once more, Michael's very last coherent thought was a silent, heartfelt prayer of immense gratitude. Gratitude for the stubborn, unrelenting determination that had somehow kept him searching against all logic for 4 years. Gratitude for the miraculous, almost unbelievable discovery of the forgotten GoPro camera on that remote buoy, and profound gratitude for the precious, unexpected second chance that both he and Olivia had now been mercifully given. Against all imaginable odds, against the vast indifference of the ocean and the calculated cruelty of men, they had somehow found their way back to each other at last. And whatever daunting challenges undoubtedly lay ahead on their long road to recovery, they would face them together, side by side, as father and daughter reunited. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you found this story compelling. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more incredible true stories and captivating narratives. Your support means the world to us,